Hey everybody, this is Carl. Welcome to Carl's Opinion. We're doing a little bit earlier tonight. I know a lot of people here on the East Coast watch my channel, and I figured, hey, you guys, I generally start at 10 o'clock my time on the West Coast, which is like 1 a.m. your time, or the earliest I think I go on is like 12:30 a.m. your time. So I figured I'd go ahead and start a little earlier tonight if you guys on the East Coast, so you don't have to stay up so late to watch the show. And as you see from the headline here, Tom Steyer in the news today. 6 months ago, he said he wasn't going to run, and he reversed his position, and now he has decided to run. So he put out kind of a infomercial for his campaign announcement. It's kind of weird. It's always kind of weird when somebody announces their campaign by doing a commercial, like a production quality commercial, instead of going out in front of a live audience and speaking there, to everybody in front of a large crowd or something. A lot of times they figure maybe they can't even get a large crowd. Kamala Harris, she had like, I don't know, 15, 20,000 people in Oakland when she announced. Of course, Trump filled up the arena, for his announcement for reelection. Joe Biden had like, 40 people. Well, no, he had like 300 people in a park in Philadelphia, which he should have had a lot more considering it was Philadelphia, and that's his hometown. I mean, he lives in Wilmington, et cetera, but that's where he considers to be his hometown, and he kind of cordoned off a small section of a park and announced from there. It was just kind of weird. The sound was all off, nothing was going right. He flubbed a bunch of lines, and you see Klobuchar. Even Klobuchar went out and did it like in a snowstorm. But anytime when they announce and they do like a infomercial, and it's all production quality and sound, and I have the video of it, and he has written like in subtitles what he's saying. He's playing some stupid music in the background. I want to catch a copyright issue on that, so I didn't play any of the audio on it. I couldn't identify the song to even try to get the royalty on it, so I don't know what it was. But all I know is I don't want it all on the screen going blank because I'm playing this stupid infomercial. But I do have that, and we have some articles. As you see, his hedge fund, Farallon Management Company, financed major coal mining operations in Asia, throughout Asia and India. And he's running on the Green New Deal, environmentalist kind of stuff. But no, his firm, his venture capitalist firm that financed these operations, will be running through these coal mines, will be running through 2030. Also, of course, he's against private prisons, but his company that he founded, he owned, is the largest shareholder in Criminal Corporations of America, CCA, and that is the single largest private prison system in the country right now. And so he's not all there. Immigration, we're going to obviously talk about that tonight. It always seems to be in the news. Further, I was watching Tucker. He had a writer on there from The Nation, of all places, discussing the Mueller report, saying how the Mueller report really didn't show any kind of Russian interference, didn't sustain any of it in his 448-page report. There was nothing sustaining any type of Russian interference whatsoever, which was interesting. So I pulled up the actual article he wrote, and we'll be discussing that tonight. He went into pretty good detail on Tucker's show, but you can only go so much detail when you're doing a Fox News show. There's only so many minutes they're going to give to you on that. So that was rather interesting. The fact that he's the only person talking about it, because again, he went through the report with a fine tooth comb, and he goes, a lot of the things, a lot of the assumptions he makes are just flat out wrong. They're baseless. Of course, as you know, Christopher Steele has agreed to meet with the Inspector General, his attorneys. He was interviewed, also the Department of Justice as well. So, because his saying was he was afraid he was going to get thrown under the bus by all his former friends. So that seemed really cool that he was like, oh, I don't want to get thrown under the bus. They're going to all blame me and say everything else was going on here, or maybe I approached them when they actually approached him. So the Inspector General has been holding off on that report because they really wanted to interview him. There's a lot of negotiations going on between the two governments to make sure that he would be willing to give an interview. Interview had to be done in England, but that's okay. Have DOJ attorneys shall travel, and they did just that. So let's go. We'll get to his story right now, and let's jump over on that. This is his video announcement, and again, like I said, I didn't put any audio on it with it because I didn't want to catch a copyright issue because he had some music playing in the background, and again, I couldn't identify the song to even try to get it, be able to purchase the royalty rights to it. So we're just going to go and play it. And you'll check it out right here. Here it goes. And basically, what he's saying here, he's pretty much anti-corporation all of a sudden, even though he made his fortune on corporations. You know, he's worth I think $6 billion right now. Green New Deal. He's in favor of the Green New Deal, even though his company's back huge coal mining operations in Asia, all the way all through Asia. And he's, of course, he did all the, Barry Goldwater, Richard Nixon. He's going to show Paul Manafort here in a few seconds to show how evil he is. He's talking about his father, what a great guy he was, how he joined the Navy, and you know, well, that's his father, fantastic. He joined the Navy and he worked on the Nuremberg thing. And they showed him the Nuremberg thing, you know. And he's sitting at 1.6 billion. He signed this pledge to give the giving pledge here, the promise to give away half of your wealth. I guess 1.6 billion. That's too much. It's too much guilt for him to handle. So he just give away half of it. But he still has to live in the mansion and the big ranches and stuff like that, and have the big cars and private plane. Because even though he cares about people, well, he doesn't care about them that much. So one of those things. There's the evil Supreme Court. There's Alito. Oh, there's Mitt Romney. He's evil too. He's going to fix it all for all of us now. And the Trump campaign put out an interesting statement today. They went on to say that, gee, it's so bad in the Democratic field that he couldn't find anybody to even endorse, so he just figured he better run for himself. Even though he's a big campaign contributor most of the time, so he figured it was so bad that he couldn't find anybody that he wanted to donate any money to, so he figured he just better run himself. He's funny. He shows all these big corporations, running things. He didn't show any of the executives for any of the social media sites today, if you notice. On this little infomercial. None of the social media giants are a part of the problem, of course. No, it's just these guys. These are the people. These corporations. The other corporations, they're okay. He's not gonna say anything about those. And then, of course, there's Manafort. Of course, there's Trump. He's evil, and I'm sure we get to Flynn here in a second. I'm sure and show that guy. They talk about the power elites in D.C. Well, he is part of the power elite, and he's talking about going across geography. We got to, control our politics. Yeah, well, he was again starting up. Some of these mines couldn't have started without his money, and these coal mines, they couldn't have just started without his money, and that was all on him. And there you go. And again, he doesn't, go in front of a live audience. He does his whole production, thing, and it's all nice and everything, all well and good, but yeah, it is what it is. So there's the great Tom Steyer announcement. Doesn't take any questions or anything. Not available to the press. No getting on the plane or anything. Just like here's a Americano. You wonder how much money he spent on that, but he sounds like he's going to be spending some pretty decent change on this campaign himself. I don't know what kind of donors he's going to get. I'm just kind of curious to what lane he thinks he's going to occupy. I think when he looked at the field and he saw Biden, screwing up and slipping, and he doesn't see Sanders being able to go the distance, and he's looking at like say Harris and Warren. He just figures there's no way they could possibly beat Donald Trump, and he's looking at like I better get involved. But I mean that's kind of it's pretty good ego. I mean he's already missed the first debate. He may not even qualify for the second debate, for the CNN debate. And if he thinks he's just going to jump in there and the other candidates are going to say, "Oh yeah, come on board," there's already a little bit of rumblings here. Bernie Sanders, let's see. Bernie Sanders has already come out and said, I'm not a great fan of." Let me fix this. What do we got going on here? Hold on. There we go. And let me just fix this picture here. We got a little bit too big for some reason. I don't know why. Let's check it out. There we go. A little bit better. All right, Bernie Sanders, not a great fan, as he says, not a great fan of billionaires such as Tom Steyer entering the race. From Bernie Earl, Elizabeth Warren also put something out today as well, saying that billionaires, even if they're good kinds of billionaires, should not be able to buy an election. That was She put a tweet out. She said, elections should be determined by the grassroots, by the people, by individuals. They shouldn't be determined by billionaires, even if they're philanthropists and things of that sort. So she figures she's not going to get any money from this guy anyway, so she can go ahead and trash him. Hey, D.A. Archer. Yeah, I started earlier tonight for everybody on the East Coast. I normally start around 10 p.m. West Coast time, 1 a.m. East Coast time. But I figured I'd go ahead and start a little earlier tonight for some people on the East Coast. You guys don't have to stay up so late. But hey, good seeing you there, Mr. Archer. And yeah, I didn't post it that far in advance, so I'm not sure how many people are going to be out here tonight listening, watching live, but hopefully people will cover the after it gets uploaded. We were talking about Tom Steyer and his bid. You just missed the video I showed of from Tom Steyer from him announcing. So I think I guess I could say I safely can say I saved you from seeing that. I showed it first, so you didn't have to watch it. But it was all production quality stuff. It was he didn't go out in front of a live audience. Like I said, I think he was afraid he wouldn't gather a large audience, because I'm not really sure what position he's going to what lane he's going to try to fill in the Democratic Party. The left is pretty well occupied right now. I mean, the Democrats are a pretty good choice if they want to go left. They got Sanders, they got Harris, they got Warren. Buttigieg, even though he claims to be moderate, he's as far left as any of them. So I mean, there's some candidates already in the field that occupy that left lane, and it doesn't sound like he's going to try going for the center. Albeit in this election announcement, he did not mention impeachment once. He did not mention impeaching President Trump once, even though he's been running millions of dollars in ads for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, on asking the American people to do just that. And then when the Mueller report came out and didn't give him what he wanted, he still said, "Oh well, there's still enough to impeach. We should still go forward." He's been very openly critical of Nancy Pelosi for not beginning impeachment proceedings. But in his ad that he ran today, his advertisement that he ran today, he didn't mention the words impeachment once. Not didn't The word did not come up as far as impeaching Donald Trump. So I guess he figures there's no way Pelosi is going to bring this up in an election year, especially when it's a sure loser. It would just give Donald Trump a big boost. Pelosi knows that. Look, Pelosi, her job is to keep the House. Well, her main job is to keep her job as Speaker. And the only way she can do that is if the House, maintains majority after the 2020 election into 2021. And there's a lot of seats that they won in 2018 were in districts that Donald Trump won in 2016, congressional district that Donald Trump carried. And Donald Trump wasn't on the ticket in 2018, and of course, the party in power as president, a lot of people want to stay home because, well, we just voted, what are we going to vote again for? And of course, the other party's angrier. If either you're going to be or you want POTUS impeached, pretty strange. Yeah, yeah, I know it is. It is. It's right. It's either you're going to be a socialist or you want POTUS impeached. I mean, that's pretty much the choice you got if you look at the Democrats right now. It's just pretty much anti-Trump, anti-Trump, anti-Trump. Of course they don't want to talk about things like the economy. Warren talks about it, but she tries to say it's not working for everybody, even though 60% of Democrats who've been surveyed say the economy is working for them. They like the economy. It's working for them. And when they were all asked that question, even Bill Maher got on their ass for not answering it, because Bill Maher's like, I was hoping somebody was going to answer that, because I wanted to see how the Democrats were going to frame the fact that 60% of Democrats, think the economy is doing well for them, and that Donald Trump is, running a good economy. And he wanted to see how they're going to address that, because he goes, what Bill Maher wrote was that, hey, you're going to have to answer that question sooner or later. And he's hoping that somebody would answer it that night of the debate, saying, "Okay, how are you going to answer that? It's a great question. How are you going to answer that?" And nobody wants to answer it, their own people in their own party are thinking the economy is doing good. So what are you going to run on? The economy's doing good. We're not getting involved in major wars anywhere around the world. Everything seems to be going good. So again, Sanders jumping on Steyer's ass. He's not going to let Steyer just come in and jump on the left. Same with Warren. She came out and said something. I don't know if Harris is going to say anything. My guess is Steyer supported her campaigns in the past, so she's probably going to sit back and let everybody else kind of beat up on him for a few minutes before she jumps into it. They're both from California. They probably run in the same circles, so she's not, considering his infomercial didn't beat up on anybody, she's probably going to try to stay out of that fight for at least the next few minutes. Joe Biden is probably going to get asked about it pretty soon, as far as what do you think about this guy. He was a hedge fund manager. So anyway, Sanders says he's not a great fan of billionaires such as Tom Steyer entering the race. And let's get some of those. Let's just see kind of some of the stories on Tom Steyer. Let's see. This is from an old article from Politico back in 2016, and old investment by Steyer becomes an issue as he eyes public office. Politico is a very left-leaning publication, and even they were saying he's going to have some problems. So even as he vows to put racial and economic justice at the top of his political agenda, California billionaire Tom Steyer is confronting a controversy about his hedge fund's past investments of millions of dollars in the nation's leading private prison corporation. Farallon Capital Management, which was his company, a San Francisco-based hedge fund which Steyer co-founded and managed for 26 years until 2012, invested heavily in the Corrections Corporation of America, the nation's largest private prison firm. According to documents on file with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the hedge fund bought 53 million shares of CCA stock worth about $1.89 million in the first quarter of 2004, record show. A year later, under Steyer's management, Farallon boosted his acquisition to 5.5% of the outstanding stock of CCA, or 2.27 million shares, valued at about $90 million. So that was one thing he's got a problem with. And then, of course, his next problem is, let's see, where is it here? Let me pull it up real quick. Let's see, let me get it here. This is an article published in the New York Times back in, this looks like back in, let's see when it was published. This is back in 2014, and so the New York Times published a story saying, to environmentalists across Australia, it is a baffling anachronism in an era of climate change, the construction of a 4,000-acre mine in New South Wales that would churn out carbon-laden coal for the next 30 years. The mine's groundbreaking in a state forest this year inspired a veteran to stand in front of a bulldozer and a music teacher to chain himself to a piece of excavation equipment. The project had an unlikely financial backer in the United States, whose infusion of cash helped set it in motion. Tom Steyer, the most influential environmentalist in American politics, who has vowed to spend $100 million this year to defeat candidates who oppose policies to combat climate change. Steyer, a billionaire, former hedge fund manager, emerged this election season as a green-minded answer to Charles G. and David Koch, patrons of conservative Republican politics, after vowing that he would sell off his investments in companies that generate fossil fuels like coal. But an examination of those investments shows that even after his highly public divestment, the coal-related projects his firm bankrolled will generate tens of millions of tons of carbon pollution for years, if not decades, to come. Over the past 15 years, Steyer's fund, Farallon Capital Management, has pumped hundreds of millions of dollars into companies that operate coal mines and coal-fired power plants from Indonesia to China, records and interviews show. The expected lifespan of those facilities, some of which may run through 2030, could cloud Mr. Steyer's image as an environmental savior and the credibility of his clean energy message, which has won him access to the highest levels of American government. Let's see. The New York Times examined the operation of coal mining companies in which Farallon invested or which he lent money during his stewardship, which coincided with growing demand and prices for coal. Together, those mines have increased their annual production by about 70 million tons since they received money from the hedge fund. according to corporate records. That is more than the amount of coal consumed annually by the country of Great Britain. And then one guy writes, I'm disappointed I have to say, said Dale Jameson, professor of environmental studies, who said he admired Steyer's campaign to curb climate change when it comes to large-scale investments in coal. You can't undo what you've done in the past. Steyer sold his ownership. The Australian mine known as Maules Creek illustrates the complexity of Steyer's efforts to distance himself. Farallon remains an investor in Maules Creek to this day, mining the site and doing a whole bunch of stuff. So anyway, so let's get to this next story here. This was the story I put out here regarding from Aaron Monte of Real Clear Investigations, July 5th, 2019. CrowdStrike out. Mueller's own report undercuts its court Russia meddling claims. It's rather interesting. Okay, let's check this out. And let's see, let's move this. Let's move me over a little bit. In fact, I'm going to move over here. Hold on. There we go. At a May press conference, capping his tenure as special counsel, Robert Mueller emphasized what he called the central allegation of the two-year Russia probe. The Russian government, Mueller sternly declared, engaged in multiple systematic efforts to interfere in our election, and that allegation deserves the attention of every American. That's what Mueller said. Mueller's comments echoed a January 2017 intelligence community assessment, asserting with high confidence that Russia conducted a sweeping 2016 election influence campaign. I don't think we've ever encountered a more aggressive or direct campaign to interfere in our election process, then Director of National Intelligence James Clapper told a Senate hearing. While the 448-page Mueller report found no conspiracy between Donald Trump's campaign and Russia, it offered voluminous details to support the sweeping conclusion that the Kremlin worked to secure Trump's victory. The report claims that the interference operation occurred principally on two fronts. Russian military intelligence officers hacked and leaked embarrassing Democratic Party documents, and a government-linked troll forum orchestrated a sophisticated and far-reaching social media campaign that denigrated Hillary Clinton and promoted Trump. But a close examination of the report shows that none of those headline assertions are supported by the report's evidence or other publicly available sources. They are further undercut by investigative shortcomings and the conflicts of interest of key players involved. And Mr. Monte goes on to say again, he writes for The Nation. This is a very, very left-leaning publication. But he looked at the report and he's like, well, where's the beef? Where the hell's the Russian interference? So here are the problems he points out in the report. The report uses qualified and vague language to describe key events, indicating that Mueller and his investigators do not actually know for certain whether Russian intelligence officers stole Democratic Party emails or how those emails were transferred to WikiLeaks. Now, that's a big thing. Now, A.J. Goodman's been covering this really heavy. I've been covering it as well, but he's covered it in great detail. In other words, his point was neither the FBI nor Mueller ever got a chance to examine the DNC servers, Democratic National Committee servers. DNC hired, farmed it out to CrowdStrike, which was a private vendor that they were paying to tell them what happened. Well, maybe they didn't want the story out there that a DNC staffer stole it, leaked it to WikiLeaks. So instead, they had CrowdStrike say, well, the Russians hacked it. But so the FBI is like, okay, let's look at it. Let's see what's going on here. And they said, well, no, you can't look at it. It's a DNC. We already had somebody else do it, and they had them write a report, and then it was a heavily redacted report. And the FBI, nobody's ever looked at those DNC servers to see exactly what happened to them. So the issue is, if they were hacked, just show them to the FBI and say, here, they were hacked. The FBI never asked for them, never subpoenaed them, never demanded them. They could have. It was a criminal investigation. It was a crime scene. They should have had complete access to them, but they let the DNC slide on that. So what this guy is saying is the Mueller report never says specifically how these Democratic emails, how they ever got transferred to WikiLeaks. He has no evidence to show, okay, they're in the server, and somehow they get to WikiLeaks, but he doesn't have any type of detailed, evidence to show how they got there. Now, again, Mueller had, 40 FBI agents, 500 subpoenas, 500 wiretaps. He had access to every piece of intelligence information out there. Anything he wanted to see, he could have seen. So we could have seen if there was, in fact, a hacking that went on. It was it's on the internet. There's a trail. Okay, everything leaves a trail behind. He could have found the trail and said, okay, here's the DNC server. Here's this Russian guy in Moscow, and here's the communication going to the DNC server, grabbing it, then taking it back to Moscow, and then giving it to WikiLeaks. He never showed that. So that's super important, and that the whole Seth Rich thing comes into play here with that. In other words, in fact, McCabe even asked some of his FBI agents about Seth Rich, and then some of the guys, oh, there's nothing to see there. Don't bother looking at Seth Rich. Further, he goes on to say the report's timeline of events appears to defy logic. According to its narrative, WikiLeaks founder Julian, you know what? I'm just going to take me off of here that way you can read this here. There we go. It's better. Report's timeline of events appears to defy logic. According to its narrative, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange announced the publication of Democratic Party emails not only before he received the documents, but before he even communicated with the source that provided them. So, in other words, the timeline was off. In other words, Mueller's got the leaks going from DNC over to WikiLeaks before Assange even met with these people, even received the documents, or even communicated with the source that provided them. And then he goes on to say there is strong reason to doubt Mueller's suggestion that an alleged Russian cutout called Guccifer 2.0 supplied the stolen emails to Assange. Mueller's decision not to interview Assange. He could have. He was sitting in the Ecuador embassy in England. He could have gone over there and interviewed him. The Ecuadorians would have said, "Yeah, you go ahead. You can't take him with you, but you can come by and interview him." Sean Hannity got an interview. Mueller could have got an interview. I mean, what was Assange going to say? No. Mueller's decision not to interview Assange, a central figure who claims Russia was not behind the hack, suggests an unwillingness to explore avenues of evidence on fundamental questions. Mainly, Mueller didn't want to know that. In other words, he just, let's see, most of what DA Archer, most of what the DNC did was make it where once Trump was in office to block the investigation because he himself was now under investigation. Totally agree with that. So U.S. intelligence officials cannot make. So basically, he didn't want to interview Assange because he didn't want to hear from Assange that it wasn't the Russians. And maybe Assange would have given up his source. Maybe he said, "Look, it was this guy. Go talk to him. He's the guy who did it. He's the guy who works for the DNC. He's a staffer." Or maybe he would have said, "Yeah, it was Seth Rich. He's dead." Because Seth Rich murder was supposed to be the cops said it was a botched robbery. FBI never even looked into it. They said it was a botched robbery. Well, Seth Rich was shot twice in the back. Because they said, "Oh, it was a botched robbery," and Seth Rich somehow fought off his robbers and they shot him. Well, if you're fighting with your attackers, how do you manage to get shot in the back? Twice. You're fighting. I mean, was he like doing some kind of weird ninja move where he was like kicking them while he wasn't facing them or something? And of course, neither his watch nor his phone nor his wallet were stolen. I mean, so didn't sound like much of a robbery, and the guy was shot in the back execution style. That wasn't a robbery, and so D.C. police had to look into it, and of course I'm sure there was a nice cover-up there. Further, U.S. intelligence officials cannot make definitive conclusions about the hacking of the Democratic National Committee computer servers because they did not analyze those servers themselves. Exactly. Instead, they relied on the forensics of CrowdStrike, a private contractor for the DNC that was not a neutral party. Much as Russian dossier compiler Christopher Steele, also a DNC contractor, was not a neutral party. This puts two Democrat-hired contractors squarely behind underlying allegations in the affair, a key circumstance that Mueller ignores. Yeah, he kind of left that part out. Further, the government allowed CrowdStrike and the Democratic Party's legal counsel to submit redacted records, meaning CrowdStrike and not the government decided what could be revealed or not regarding evidence of hacking. Mueller's report conspicuously does not allege that the Russian government carried out the social media campaign. Instead, it blames, as Mueller said in his closing remarks, a private Russian entity known as the Internet Research Agency, the IRA. Mueller also falls far short of proving that the Russian social media campaign was sophisticated or even more than minimally related to the 2016 election. As with the collusion and Russian hacking allegations, Democratic officials had a central and overlooked hand in generating the alarm about Russian social media activity. John Brennan, then director of the CIA, played a seminal and overlooked role in all facets of what became Mueller's investigation. The suspicions that triggered the initial collusion probe, the allegations of Russian interference, and the intelligence assessment that purported to validate the interference allegation that Brennan himself helped generate. Yet Brennan has since revealed himself to be, like CrowdStrike and Steele, hardly a neutral party. In fact, a partisan with a deep animus toward Trump. This is the guy from the left writing this. I mean, he says, like, look, this guy, he's the one who put all this thing together with Misford, with Stefan Halper, with, approaching Papadopoulos in March and April of 2016 rather, way before the July 31st determination by the FBI to open up a counterintelligence investigation. This was all done by John Brennan. Misford worked for Italian intelligence. Mueller referred to him as a Russian agent in his report, but he wasn't. The Italians have since came out and said, no, he worked for us. And Italy fired the new prime minister of Italy. A populist like Donald Trump fired his two top intelligence officials inside of Italy after this became public. None of this means that the Mueller report's court findings of sweeping and systematic Russian government election interference is necessarily false, but the report does not present sufficient evidence to substantiate it. This shortcoming has gone overlooked in the partisan battle over two more highly charged aspects of Mueller's report: potential Trump-Russia collusion and Trump's potential obstruction of the resulting investigation. As Mueller prepares to testify before House committees later this month, the questions surrounding his claims of a far-reaching Russian influence campaign are no less important. They raise doubts about the genesis and perpetuation of Russiagate and the performance of those tasked with investigating it. And he goes into detail. Uncertainty over, and there's a picture of John Podesta. Uncertainty over who stole the emails. Mueller's report narrative of Russian hacking and leaking was initially laid out in July 2018 indictment of 12 Russian intelligence officers and is detailed further in the report. According to Mueller, operatives at Russia's main intelligence agency broke into Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta's emails in March of 16. The hackers infiltrated Podesta's account with a common tactic called spear phishing, duping him with a phony security alert that led him to enter his password. The GRU then used stolen Democratic Party credentials to hack into the DNC and Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, DCCC. Servers beginning in April 2016. Beginning in June 2016, report claims the GRU created two online personas, DC Leaks and Guccifer, to begin releasing the stolen material. After making contact later that month, Guccifer apparently transferred the DNC emails to the whistleblowing anti-secrecy publisher WikiLeaks, which released the first batch on July 22nd, ahead of the Democratic National Convention. The report presents this narrative with remarkable specificity. It describes in detail how GRU officers installed malware, leased U.S.-based computers, and used cryptocurrencies to carry out their hacking operation. The intelligence that caught the GRU hackers is portrayed as so invasive and precise that it even captured the keystrokes of individual Russian officers, including their use of search engines. In fact, the report contains crucial gaps in the evidence that might support the authoritative account. Here is how it describes the core crime under investigation: the alleged GRU theft of DNC emails. Between approximately May 25, 2016 and June 1, 2016, GRU officers accessed the DNC's mail server from a GRU-controlled computer leased inside the United States. During these connections until, I don't know what that date is, officers appeared to have stolen thousands of emails. Report use of that one word, appear, undercuts its suggestion that Mueller possesses convincing evidence. The GR officers stole thousands of emails and attachments from DNC servers. It is a departure from language used in his indictment, which contained no such qualifier. So basically, this guy's writing is like, hey, this Mueller report, it came out as some kind of authoritative, statement showing that the Russians interfered and hacked into the DNC servers, and yet Mueller provided no evidence in his 448 pages. If he was going to provide the evidence, that was the time to do it. All right, let's going to take a look at immigration issue, and I'll jump back on the screen here in a second. There we go. And we'll jump over here. There we are. Okay, I like this from Washington Times. Hola. Hello. Majority of Hispanic voters approve of citizenship question on U.S. Census. Yeah, I was kind of surprised. Actually, I really wasn't that surprised. So let's take a look at it. This is from the Washington Times. 2/3 of voters approve of a citizenship question on the 2020 census, and that includes a majority of Hispanic voters, despite claims by Democratic lawmakers that the inquiry would discourage participation in Latino communities. A Harvard University Center for American Political Studies Harris poll found that 67% of all registered U.S. voters say the census should ask a citizenship question when the time comes. That includes 88% of Republicans, 63% of independents, and 52% of Democrats. Most notably, the poll found that 55% of Hispanic voters favor the idea. There you go. Also in agreement, 74% of rural voters, 59% of black voters, 58% of urban voters, and 47% of voters who backed Hillary Clinton. I mean, that's a huge majority. At 44%, liberal voters were the least likely to favor the citizenship question. On the other end of the scale, 92% of Trump voters and 90% of conservatives backed the question. The Harvard poll of 2,182 registered voters, that's actually a pretty good sample size, was conducted between June 26th and June 29th. A Hill-Harris voter poll conducted in June found that 60% of voters approved of the question. On Tuesday, White House counselor Kellyanne Conway challenged why the citizenship question should even be an issue on the census. We're asking people how many toilets in your house, and you don't want to know who's using them. It's absolutely ridiculous, and this is why the president is fighting for the question's inclusion, Ms. Conway told Fox News. The census is important, and as President Trump has mentioned, we spend about $20 billion on it. We have said it's an important exercise, so why not get it right? The census in the past has been increasingly responsive to changes in American democracy, she continued. And then this is a older story, but it's worth looking at again. Yale MIT study, 22 million, not 11 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. Tucker kind of covered a little bit of this tonight, saying that, showing everybody saying, oh, it's only 11 million, it's only 11 million. Well, Yale and MIT, these are not bastions of conservative thought. Cory Booker went to Yale, Michelle Obama went to Yale. These are liberal bastions, but they're saying, no, the number is actually 22 million, which is something that should give us all concern. Because, everybody's saying give free health care to legal aliens. So you're going to add 22 million people to Medicaid or to whatever government-run health care program you're looking to do. Just suddenly here's 22 million people, just go ahead and take it. And then we'll get to the story. Let me grab a cigarette. Let me fix this real quick here. Bum, bum. There we go. So, MIT study, 22 million, not 11 million. Big difference. And let's get to this story down here. So, the undocumented population in the United States could be twice as large. Karen Finley, some say as much as 30 million. Yep, Karen. I've heard that number too. Actually, in this study, I think they said, it's as high as 20. It could be as low as 16.5 million, or as high as 29.1 million. So 30 million. But I mean, they were doing the best they can because again, nobody's counting this. So, study compared inflows and outflows of immigrants as well as demographic data. According to the report, the number of undocumented immigrants could be as low as 16.5 million, still way more than 11 million, or as high as 29.1 million. We combine these data using a demographic model that follows a very simple logic, told Yale Insights. The population today is equal to the initial population plus everyone who came in minus everyone who went out. It's that simple. See, that's not hard. Okay, here's our population, here's all the people that came in, and here's all the people that left, and here's the numbers. Most previous estimates based on the U.S. Census Bureau's annual American Community Survey placed the undocumented population at around 11 million. The ACS is generated annually through interviews with about 3.5 million people. You find it based on one very specific survey and possibly an approach that has some difficulties. So we went in and just took a different approach. Jonathan Feinstein, another co-author, told Yale Insights. Still, the new study found similarities in growth patterns of the undocumented population to the ACS reports of the past 2 decades. So I mean, it's that's a big number. Oh, Jesus. Let's stay on this topic here. Mm-hmm. So, the Washington Examiner, let's pull this up. Exclusive. I'm not sure how exclusive that is. Illegal immigrant apprehensions dropped by more than 37,500 in June. Now, the number is still way too high, and DHS is still sending additional people down to the border because, it went down from like 130,000 to 98,000, whatever the number is. But still, it's way higher. In fact, it's 94,487. It's still way higher, though, than it should be. So they had to send additional personnel down. But, I think what you see here is some of the effects. Some of it might be weather, but I don't think so. I think more of it is probably because the Mexicans have taken a little bit better role in policing their own country. I mean, look, they could shut it down immediately if they wanted to, but they got to deal with their own politics over there. Plus, the guy in charge is big time leftist. Their major economic advisor, the cabinet minister, just resigned today because he didn't like where the leftist policies were going. So, you got a leftist president. The only thing that got him to do anything was Trump's threatening those tariffs on his goods. Even though he's a leftist, he's still beholden to a lot of the big agricultural combines and manufacturing combines that exist in his country. They're the ones who allowed him to take office, if you will. So basically, crossings from Mexico have dropped in June for the first time in 6 months, plummeting by more than 37,500 since May. According to two officials with firsthand knowledge of the data, exactly 94,487 people were arrested crossing between ports of entry in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California last month. The massive decline comes after 132,000 illegal entrants were arrested in May on the southern border, the highest number in 1 month since March of '06. Not good. Still a high number. That's why DHS is still sending people down there. And let's take a look here. Interesting story today. Here we go. Smugglers we covered the Marines doing some smuggling. Oh, what's this here? Oprah Winfrey. What's this? There we go. Smugglers use ambulance in attempt to sneak illegals into the U.S., court documents show. This is done in Texas, right near Houston. I think we got that off of there. Okay. All right. Let's take a look here. Eagle-eyed Stephen Diner of the Washington Times from today. Eagle-eyed Border Patrol agents sniffed out an attempt this weekend to smuggle illegal immigrants deeper into the U.S. in an ambulance. The smugglers claimed to be transporting a patient from the border to a hospital in Houston and tried to make their way through a Border Patrol checkpoint on Highway 281 near Falfurrias, Texas. But the driver was too nervous and drew the attention of an agent who then asked to see credentials and paperwork of the patient. He didn't have any. The driver, Oscar Omar Garcia, said he didn't have either, said Agent Edwin Lopez. See, there's the agent's name, Edwin Lopez. One thing they always talk about, the race is Border Patrol agents. I think the number is like something like 55 to 60% of Border Patrol agents are all Hispanic. So, I mean, because they live there. I mean, look, who's going to go to work for Border Patrol? Who lives in those areas along the border? A lot of Hispanics live there. Been living there for generations. I mean, New Mexico, Texas, Arizona, you have people of Mexican descent living there for 200 years. I mean, they go back a long time. So you have a lot of Hispanics that join the Border Patrol. Border Patrol likes hiring Hispanics because a lot of them are bilingual. They speak both Spanish and English. So they really suited for the job, and they do good work. So I mean, there's Agent Edwin Lopez. Mainstream media never tells you that. At the same time, an agent with a contraband sniffing dog alerted to the back of the ambulance, and the vehicle was sent for a secondary inspection, where 6 illegal immigrants were discovered in the back of the ambulance. Well, it must have been pretty crowded back there. One of the aliens was pretending to be a patient lying down on a stretcher wearing a neck brace and intravenous attached to his right arm and an oxygen mask, Agent Lopez said in the criminal complaint filed in federal district court in Texas. After being arrested, Mr. Garcia told agents he was being paid $2,000 to drive the 6 illegal immigrants from McAllen to Houston, which is about 6 hours by car. A couple of miles before the checkpoint, he stopped the ambulance and told most of the migrants to hide in the storage compartments while they went through the checkpoint. Oh, let's cover this story real quick here. This one just looks like just came out. Here we go. Trump Ninth Circuit Court nominee confirmed over Democrats' objections. Not too bad. There's a big picture of President Trump smiling. Yay. There you go. Brushing, so now, right, normally they call it getting a blue card, I believe. Normally, when you are going to appoint somebody in, like, say, the Ninth Circuit, which sits in California, you generally ask the 2 senators from that state if, they're okay with it. In this case, it would be Dianne Feinstein and Senator Kamala Harris. Obviously, they're not going to say they're okay with anybody Trump was going to appoint. So they said, hey, we have a policy in the Senate. You're supposed to, get a blue card approval from us. And McConnell said, yeah, we're not doing that anymore because you're not going to allow anybody in here that the president wants, and we're willing to confirm. So anyway, brushing aside Senator Kamala Harris' complaints, Senate Republicans on Tuesday approved a new judge for the Federal Appeals Court with jurisdiction over California.
further narrowing Democrats' edge on the famously liberal court. Daniel Bress was approved by a 53 to 45 vote, straight party line vote, with Senators Bernard Sanders of Vermont and Kirsten Gillibrand of New York not voting. Ms. Harris and Senator Feinstein, California's two Democratic senators, had complained that Mr. Bress was a Washington, D.C. lawyer who wouldn't represent California's interests on the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. They said the seat he was filling should go to a Californian. Well, it's federal law. It's a U.S. District. It's a U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. What? Well, that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, we have an imported judge now coming to the Ninth Circuit, Ms. Feinstein said. Imported, yes. A U.S. District Court judge interprets federal law. Yeah, that's really bad. Okay. I mean, yeah, sometimes you have to interpret state substantive law and or state procedure, but I mean, that's rare. I mean, it happens, but, like we can all read a book, okay, put it that way. The two Democrats try to use the Senate's blue slip, not blue card, blue slip tradition, a courtesy to home state senators to block Mr. Bress, but Republicans have said they won't let the blue slips be a veto over circuit nominees. Mr. Bress comes with strong credentials, the academic pedigree, the legal experience, and most importantly, a demonstrated commitment to the rule of law, said Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, a Kentucky Republican, who can be a pain in the ass sometimes, but boy, he's sure good at getting these judges through. Mr. Bress is the seventh Trump-appointed judge to win confirmation to the Ninth Circuit. That's important. There are now 28 active judges and one vacancy still to be filled. Of those 29 seats, at least 13 are linked to California under an informal tradition of assigning seats on appeals courts in a certain state. Judiciary Chairman Senator Lindsey Graham said Mr. Bress's nomination is the only time Ms. Feinstein has questioned the state ties of a circuit nominee. Right. In other words, it's the only time she's ever said, well, he's not from California, we can't vote for him. Yeah, I agree with you, Karen, especially when it goes to the Ninth Circuit. Well, Mr. Bress, right, so Graham's like, I've known Dianne Feinstein for years. She's never questioned any state ties of a Circuit Court of Appeals judge, until now. While Mr. Bress currently works for a D.C. law firm, he's a member of the California Bar. He considers himself a Californian. His family lives in California, said Mr. Graham. Well, there you go. He compared Mr. Bress to Justice Neil Gorsuch, who was born in Denver but grew up in Washington, D.C. and practiced law as a D.C. attorney. He's confirmed to a seat on the Denver-based 10th U.S. Circuit Court that had traditionally belonged to Colorado, though he did not practice law in the state. We're not going to change the rules just because Trump is in the White House here. What we did here is well within the line of what we have done in the past, Graham said. Feinstein, the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, has argued for adhering to the blue slip policy and said state claims to court seats should be respected too. I'm so disappointed the majority has disregarded this, she said on the Senate floor. Dust-ups over circuit seats in the states they're associated with erupt every so often. Kurt Levy, president of the Committee for Justice, said the seats are a prize for senators to hand out to individuals they want as judges. Senators typically push for the president to nominate one of their favorites for federal court vacancies in their home state. They get power, influence, and having control over these seats, so they fight like hell, Levy said. Senator Steve Daines, Montana Republican, who backed Mr. Bress, said Tuesday fight over his confirmation was more reason to split up the Ninth Circuit, the largest federal appeals court, which spans 9 states, including Montana. There you go. So that's some pretty good news. Let's see if there's another story here. Who's afraid of nationalism? Oh, wait, here we go. Back to immigration. Misrepresenting themselves at the border. Okay. It's from the Washington Times from today. It's not just the number of individuals crossing our southwest border illegally that's surging, it's the number of families. But many of those families turn out not to be families at all, but frauds trying to exploit loopholes in federal immigration laws that allow families to avoid detention and deportation back to their native countries. In May, the Border Patrol intercepted more than 144,000 illegal aliens. That was the largest monthly total in more than a dozen years. From October 1st, 18 through May 31st, 19, the Border Patrol apprehended almost 600,000 illegal aliens, of which family units and unaccompanied minors represented 66%, also a significant increase. Why has there been such an increase in family units? According to testimony by officials of the Department of Homeland Security on June 26, it is because aliens know that when it comes to families, DHS must, pursuant to a court order, release them quickly, generally within 20 days, and that they will be allowed to stay in the U.S. indefinitely while awaiting protracted immigration court proceedings. In other words, crossing with a child is a near guarantee of a speedy release and indefinite stay in the U.S. As DH officials told the Senate, these families are not concerned with being caught by the Border Patrol. They are actually turning themselves in, knowing that they will be processed and released within a court date years in the future. Due to the fact that human smugglers are exploiting these loopholes to encourage more migration by telling aliens that anyone who rides with a child will not be deported. Almost all the smugglers work for the dangerous and brutal Mexican drug cartels and often beat, assault, rob, and rape the individuals they are smuggling across the border. Yeah, and who they can complain to, you know? Yeah, I saw that story too, Karen, about children being rented to illegals. And right, one kid had been rented out like 4 or 5 times, I think, all the way from Honduras. You know, he gets over there, then he comes back, and he gets rented out again. And one mom was making a fortune off her kid. And of course, the kid was like, what the shit? As one would expect, many of these aliens never show up for their scheduled immigration hearings because they know they have no legal right to be in the country. They just disappear into the anonymity of the heartland after they are processed and released by the Border Patrol. Since being part of a family is a get-out-of-detention-free card, it should come as no surprise that a lot of fraud is apparently going on. Gregory Navarro, assistant director of DHS Homeland Security Investigations Program, recently told a House committee that in just a 2-month period, they identified 316 fake family units when they detected fraudulent documents being used by the aliens. DHS also initiated a pilot DNA testing program in El Paso and McAllen, Texas, that ran from May 6th to May 10th. DHS tested 84 family units during those 4 days. 16 turned out to be fake families. In other words, almost 20% of those supposed families were frauds. Mr. Navarro also related that Border Patrol agents said other families, quote unquote, who were not selected for testing voluntarily came forward and admitted they were part of a fraudulent family as they heard witness that DNA testing was being conducted. In fact, DHS has evidence that aliens and human smugglers are renting, here you go, Karen, renting and even buying children to get into the country. DHS caught a 51-year-old Honduran who admitted that the infant child he initially claimed was his son was actually purchased from the birth mother for the equivalent of $84. What kind of mom would sell her kid for $84 to be taken on a dangerous journey all the way through Mexico to the United States? There's some 50-year-old dude. DHS mounted an operation called Noble Guardian that identified alien adults who entered the country with accompanying children as alleged family units, and then the children subsequently departed the U.S. on commercial airlines back to their native countries. DHS believes that children are being used and recycled for the purpose of defrauding the United States. We really are facing an unsustainable and unprecedented crisis on the border, and the loopholes in our immigration system, which Congress refuses to fix, are being exploited in a way that is not only dangerous to our security, but for those aliens who, as a DHS official, told Congress, put their lives in the hands of smugglers and make the dangerous trek north to the southwest border. And anyway, let me, going back to the Steyer part of the broadcast, I'm going to show this one video here. Let's see. Go ahead and show this one video from earlier. Let me get it queued up here. All right, here you go.
Remember the old adage about people living in glass houses not throwing stones? Well, Tom Steyer's been throwing a lot of stones lately. The hedge fund billionaire has said he's devoting his life to opposing those who question climate change. And he's willing to spend millions of his dollars opposing politicians he feels don't measure up on climate change issues. Well, that out-front position, that very high-profile position by the hedge fund manager in California, by the way, is drawing some stones of his own. Journalists at the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and other publications have been looking into Mr. Steyer's background and find that he himself profited handsomely from massive investments in greenhouse gas producing coal mines and coal-fired power plants, particularly in Asia. Remember the old adage about people living in glass houses not throwing stones? Well, Tom Steyer's been throwing a lot of stones lately. The hedge fund billionaire has said he's devoting his life to opposing those who question climate change. And he's willing to spend millions of his dollars opposing politicians he feels don't measure up on climate change issues. Well, that out front position, that very high profile position by the hedge fund manager in California, by the way, is drawing some stones of his own. Journalists at the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and other publications have been looking into Mr. Steyer's background and find that he himself profited handsomely from massive investments in greenhouse gas producing coal mines and coal-fired power plants, particularly in Asia. And now he's on the defensive. He threw stones, and now those stones are being thrown back at him because it turns out he may be living in a glass house.
So that's rather interesting there. A little that was from 2014. I mean, that's there you go. So that's from 2000. That's from 2014. Anyway, that's what Steyer's going to be facing on the uh, from the Democrats in the primaries here. Again, like I said, Bernie Sanders already came out and said billionaires should not be running for office and should not be determining elections. And you had let's see here, this up here. And you also had Elizabeth Warren come out today and criticize billionaires. Oh, and by the way, I know we don't have a lot of people watching. I didn't do a lot of advertising on this, and I'm 2 hours earlier than I'm normally appearing. But if anybody does want to appear by telephone, that'd be fine. Phone number is 775-273-8970. So anyway, let's take a look at the next story here. Let me just jump over here. Well, let me pull this up. There we go. There's an interesting story here. I don't know why some people think they can, anybody, I can run for president kind of thing. So let's take a look here. All right, so you got Amy McGrath, retired fighter pilot, now has challenged to Mitch McConnell in 2020. Some reason she thinks she's going to be able to win in Kentucky. I don't see that happening. I don't know why, but basically Kentucky is very pro-Trump. She's running on an anti-Trump message. Kentucky, even in 2020, I mean, Trump's on the ticket. And if you think people are going to vote for Trump and they go, oh, we're not going to vote for McConnell, especially when Trump's going to go out there and do some campaigning for him, hold some big ass rallies in Kentucky. He's going to. He's going to probably at least 2 or 3 big ass rallies in Kentucky. Support Mitch McConnell and talk about how McConnell got the federal, judges on there. It's very Bible Belt type state. A lot of born again Christian type people are out there. They're big fans of what Trump's been doing on the bench, even though Trump does not fit into your typical kind of Christian narrative. I mean, the guy's a fornicator, adulterer, everything else. Still, they were willing to vote for him because they knew what he'd do for the bench on the Supreme Court and the District Court judges and the Circuit Court of Appeal judges. And to Trump's benefit, he kept his promise. And McConnell's been right there aiding and abetting and helping him all the way through. So, how she thinks she's going to come at him as a Democrat and win against McConnell in 2020. McConnell is a sneaky kind of guy. You can just tell he's kind of a sneaky kind of guy. Remember, he's a guy who made him vote on the Green New Deal. They filed the bill, and normally it was Markey that filed it. It was Ocasio-Cortez's bill, and Markey figured, well, McConnell never put this on the floor for a vote. He'll just bury it. Well, McConnell's like, no, you know what? You guys always say I bury bills. I'm gonna go take it right from the committee, not even have a vote in committee. I'm gonna put it right on the floor for you. I'm gonna let you guys vote on it because that way you can't say I'm a mean guy. I'm gonna let you guys vote on the Green New Deal. And the Democrats, of course, threw a fit because now they're going to have to be answering to all this stupid, retarded stuff that's in there. He said no amendments. He didn't allow any amendments or anything to it. Just straight up on the bill as it was filed. And Markey's like, oh, this is so unfair. And McConnell's like, what are you talking about? You guys want to vote on bills that you present all the time. So that's the kind of guy McConnell is. Anyway, not one Democrat voted in favor of the bill, and they all voted not present, which is hilarious. Even Markey didn't vote in favor of his own bill, because he was, doing whatever to Ocasio-Cortez. Oh, yeah, I'll put it on the floor of the Senate for you. Yeah, you're so pretty. You're so pretty, Miss Cortez. Yeah. But anyway, so that's the kind of guy he is, and he already put out a campaign ad against
against McGrath already. So I mean, he was. He knew who's the kind of people which people were going to be running against him, and he already was sitting in the wings waiting for this. So let's kind of take a look at this story real quick. It'd be kind of funny. So Amy McGrath, retired fighter pilot, announces 20 challenge to Mitch McConnell in 2020. Democrat, this is from David Cherfinsky of the Washington Times, filed today. Democrat Amy McGrath, a retired fighter pilot, on Tuesday announced she is running for U.S. Senate in Kentucky in 2020 against current Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. In her announcement video, Ms. McGrath said Mr. McConnell, elected a lifetime ago, well, that's going to go over well in Kentucky. A lot of old people in Kentucky, they say, "Oh, what are you trying to say? We're too old?" Has steadily turned Washington D.C. into something we despise. No, not really. She goes on to say, "I'm running for Senate because it shouldn't be like this." She said, "I learned as a daughter, a mom, a Marine, and a fighter pilot that the mission can never be forgotten." Ms. McGrath, who lost in a close race to GOP Rep. Andy Barr last year, has been recruited to challenge McConnell by Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer. Mr. McConnell's campaign, well, see, basically the Democrat strategy is, look, they don't think she's got a chance to beat McConnell, but they need to spread out the Republicans' money. So, if by spending some money on the McConnell race, that's less money they have to spend in tight races. So basically, Chuck Schumer, he's another, sleazy kind of guy. Also, he knows McGrath has no chance to win. He's gonna make her go out there, campaign, all the way up until November, work her ass off, and at the end of the day, he knows she's gonna lose. But she serves his purpose. You know, and Schumer's kind of, sleazy, convincing her, "Oh yeah, you can win. We'll back you up." No, there's no chance in hell she's going to win. Not against Mitch McConnell, especially all he's done for Trump and all he's done for the religious right on these judges. It's not going to happen. Mitch McConnell's campaign team responded to the news with a video. See, they were already ready to go with a video of their own that splices past comments from Ms. McGrath, including clips of her praising one single-payer health care and declaring that she is further left and more progressive than anybody in the state of Kentucky. Well, how are you going to win on that? Saying, I'm more left and more progressive than anybody in the state, so vote for me because I don't represent your interests. Please. What the hell does that even mean? And then McConnell's team at the end goes, "Welcome to the race, Amy at Kentucky Senator, pick Twitter.com, Team Mitch." McConnell campaign manager Kevin Golden called Ms. McGrath an extreme liberal Trump's election to 9/11, endorsing, comparing, and then they go on to say that she was comparing President Trump's election to 9/11. She was endorsed a government takeover of healthcare, and calling the border wall stupid is a heck of a platform that we will be delighted to discuss over the next 16 months, Ms. Golden said. Democrats had been bullish on taking down McConnell in 2014, but in the end, the Kentucky Republican cruised to victory over Democrat Allison Lundgren Grimes. It wasn't even close. The political environment will likely be less favorable next year for Republicans, but not in Kentucky. But unseating McConnell in a solidly red Kentucky will still be a heavy lift for Democrats, who have struggled to persuade other top-level recruits to jump into the U.S. Senate contest next year. Republicans currently hold an effective 53 to 47 majority in the Senate. Yeah. Okay. So I really don't know what to think about it. Let's see with some other stories here. Let's see. Uh, mm, nope. We'll get to some of my stories. I don't like any of the new ones there. Let's see here. Here's a good story here. I'm grab another cigarette. All right, let's see what we got here. Canadian theater company stands by showing anti-abortion film. There you go. Yeah. This is by Julio Rosas of the Washington Examiner. A Canadian theater company defended their decision to screen the movie Unplanned, a film about how a former Planned Parenthood clinic director quit her job after taking part in an abortion procedure after calls for a boycott swirled on social media. Yeah, so people in Canada were trying to get this company not to show the movie in its theaters. And I have been working in the business for well over 30 years, and controversial films on the big screen are not new to me, to Cineplex, or to the industry as a whole, Cineplex President Ellis Jacobs said in a statement. That said, the decision to move forward with screenings of this particular film was a complicated one, and it was not made easily or lightly. But as Canada's largest film exhibition company, I am confident that it was the right decision for us, for you, and for our country. Jacob pointed to how, when he immigrated to Canada in 1969, the country did not shy away from different viewpoints and experiences. In this instance, many of us will have to set aside our own personal beliefs and remember that living in a country that censors content, opinions, and points of view because they are different from our own is not a country that any of us would want to live in, Jacob said. In a tweet from the Cineplex account a few days before the statement, the company said, "We believe it is up to the public to decide whether they would like to see a particular film, and our guests can give voice to their opinions by choosing to buy a ticket to the movie or not." Yeah, go figure. If you don't like it, don't do it. Hey, Shonda Graphics, how you doing? I see you, Miss Shonda's. I see you out there. Can't hide. Let's see. Hi there. As a film exhibitor, we provide our guests with movie choices. We believe it is up to the public to decide whether they would like to see a particular film, and our guests can give voice to their opinions by choosing to buy a ticket or to the movie or not. Exactly. If you don't like the movie, you don't like what it's saying, don't buy a ticket. Don't support it. Yeah, I remember when Dinesh D'Souza's movie came out last year. It was last year. Yeah, it was, and I couldn't get down to see it the first night. So what I did is I went online and I bought 12 tickets that night because I wanted to support the movie and show, people were in support of it. But, and if you don't like it, don't buy any tickets. And then when the movie doesn't do any good, then people say, see, the movie sucks. Abby Johnson, whose experience is what the movie is based on, tweeted, whether pro-abortion Canadians like it or not, the movie will be played in theaters. Yeah, good for her. There we go. There she is right there. So, abortion-supporting Canadians are all hot and bothered by the release on July 12th. It's coming, Canada. It's time to see what I saw. Yeah, this is based on her real-life story. Well, good for her. Good for her. All right, let's get the next story here. Bum, 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 bum. And here's a Harvard University poll showing that voters are actually getting tough on illegal immigration. See, besides, the mainstream media wants to say that everybody's in favor of illegal immigration and that all of us are just nuts for thinking this way. Well, not so fast. Here's Harvard University, another bastion of conservatism. No, not. That's being sarcastic, highly. Anyway, let's see what they have to show. By Jennifer Harper, Washington Times. This is from yesterday. Drama on the U.S.-Mexico border continues. Drama also continues in polls gauging voter reaction to illegal immigration challenges in the region. Two-thirds of all voters now frown on accepting people with questionable asylum claims. Two-thirds. While 52% agree with President Trump's decision to declare a national emergency, 52%, the majority of people in this country, and that's what all the negative press, 24/7, over his decision to declare a national emergency over illegal crossings. Another 47% would approve a mass action by the federal government to round up and remove thousands of illegal immigrants from the U.S. 47%. Now, just think about if we had a fair press in this country. Hey, Jervis, how you doing over there? Just think about if we had a fair press in this country. If we had a fair press that just reported the news and didn't provide 24/7 commentary against the president, against his position, against us, just think how high those numbers would be. That's still pretty good. So says a Harvard University Center for American Political Studies Harris poll of 2,182 registered U.S. voters conducted June 26th to the 29th. We covered part of this poll earlier, but this goes into detail on some of the other things. But still, 2,182 registered U.S. voters. That's a really nice sample size. I mean, you can get a really good poll done when you do a sample size that large. A majority of Americans want mass deportations of illegal aliens if Congress fails to reach a deal this week, that closes loopholes in the country's asylum system that allows mass flows of foreign nationals to pour through the U.S.-Mexico border, writes Breitbart.com analyst John Binder, who focused on one aspect of the survey. He points out that 51% of American voters say they support mass deportations of the 11 million to 22 million to, as Karen pointed out, 30 million illegal immigrants living in the U.S. illegally. More than 8 in 10 Republican voters, as well as more than 5 in 10 swing voters, said President Trump should carry out mass deportations of illegal aliens following congressional action. Nearly 9 in 10 Trump supporters said the same. They're always saying, like, oh, look out for those never Trumpers, and Trump support is weak, and, people who back Trump really don't back him. Well, 90% of Trump supporters are in favor of mass deportations. So, his support is not soft. Let's put it that way. An Inside the Beltway foray into the 277-page poll reveals some more specifics which often appear muted or omitted in typical news coverage. As follows. 54% of the respondents say people should be granted asylum in the U.S. only if they face direct political or religious violence, not quote-unquote general violence. Right, because people in this country, we face general violence. I mean, pick a city. East St. Louis, Detroit, Lansing, Erie, Pennsylvania, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Baltimore. Chicago. Pick a city. General violence, L.A. Jesus. On a related front, the Harvard study also finds that 67% of voters say the U.S. Census should be able to ask whether people living here are U.S. citizens. More numbers in the poll du jour at column's end. Democratic presidential hopeful Joe Biden recently had a combative interview on CNN and became visibly frustrated. Well, what else is new? After failing to offer a focused answer regarding his beliefs on school busing during an earlier era. It was not a memorable moment. This is an opinion regarding Biden. And so this opinion editor goes on to say, there's an old adage in politics, if you're explaining, you're losing. And ever since last week's Democratic debate, Biden has been tripping over himself to explain his lackluster performance and generally acting like, well, a loser, advises Mark Hemingway, writer for Real Clear Investigations. Another story he covers, CNN's big draw. The countdown is on for the next round of Democratic debates, which arrive 3 weeks from Tuesday at a major arena in Detroit, to be moderated by Dana Bash, Don Lemon, that's funny, and Jake Tapper. The network has released a few new details. CNN will conduct a live draw to determine which night each candidate will appear in the highly anticipated Democratic presidential primary debates. Both nights will air live exclusively on CNN and CNN en Espanol. A spokesman said Monday, also noting the big draw will be broadcast live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. The debates will also be simulcast on CNN International and streamed live online at CNN.com. Well, that's good to know because through such providers as Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire. Oh, Amazon. Okay, so I won't stream it on CNN, but I'll go through Amazon. I don't have Amazon Fire, but I guess I'll do CNN.com. Oh, well. The debate will come shortly after Robert Mueller is expected to testify publicly before the House Judiciary Intelligence Committees. Mueller, former special counsel for the Justice Department and former director of the FBI, delivered a report to DOJ after spending nearly 2 years investigating Russian interference in the 2016 election. Mueller's highly anticipated testimony comes as an increasing number of lawmakers, including some 2020 candidates, are calling for an impeachment inquiry to begin against President Trump, the network said. Yeah, and we just covered that story from the writer Aaron Mate from The Nation saying, hey, Mueller's report doesn't back up, substantiate any evidence that the Russians actually interfered or even hacked into the Democratic National Committee's servers. So this would be, I'm sure everybody's reading that article. That was a really good article. Tucker Carlson had the guy on tonight as well. Yeah, the Communist News Network. Yeah, I agree, Karen. Well, the problem is Fox isn't going to cover it on their live stream. So if I want to cover a live stream on it, then I got to go who's covering it, So I don't know, maybe, and CNN is probably not going to let anybody else cover it, so other than them. One thing to remember is that the actual presidential election is over 500 days away. We're witnessing a lot of posturing and wheel spinning. Let's see what else here. 70. Okay, here's the polls. 71% of voters support comprehensive immigration reform. 79% of Republicans, 69% of independents, 66% of Democrats agree. 62% say there is a humanitarian and security crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border, with 69% of Republicans, 57% of independents, that's a good number, and 61% of Democrats agree. 62% says people seeking entry with questionable asylum claims should be turned away, immediately. That's a pretty good number. 62% of the people in the country, again, with all the negative news and press. And that includes 81% of Republicans, 64% of independents. That's the big number. That is the big number right there. 64% of independents. That's huge. That's more than the average. And that's where you win your race, in the middle. So 64% of independents are saying, yeah, turn them away immediately if they have questionable asylum claims. 52% 52% favor the decision of President Trump to declare a national emergency, which includes 84% of Republicans, 51% of independents, I like that number too, and only 26% of Democrats. 45% say current asylum laws should be tightened to accept fewer claims, 66% of Republicans, 47% of independents, and 26% of Democrats. 42% say immigration is the most important issue facing the U.S., 58% of Republicans, 36% of independents, and 33% of Democrats agree. Doo-doo-doo. Doo-doo-doo. So, when people go around saying that it's just us and we're crazy and shit like that, well, no, it's more than just us. Okay. Majority of people in the country. It's the majority of people in the country who favor tougher laws on immigration, favor deporting people who are here illegally, favor the president's national security declaration, and favor turning away people immediately. I think it was 64% of independents. 64% of independents say people who come in with questionable asylum claims should be turned away immediately. That's like pretty good number right there. That's pretty impressive. Anyway, live call-in show. Phone number is 775-273-8970. If you want to appear by a vMix video phone call, you can do that as well. And you just put in the chat, send me an email to that address up on the left, ca2jogger@gmail.com. Say, hey, I sent you an email. I reply to your email with the link. You hit on said link. I tested it out again tonight just to make sure it was still working. And you just hit said link on your phone or on your laptop or desktop. You just type your username in, hit join call. I take care of the rest on this end. You're on screen. We have fun. Unless you're not into having fun. Now, if you're not into having fun, I don't know what to tell you. But if you want to have a fun time, you can appear on side by side on screen, or you can do just a regular phone call. All right, let's take a look here. Hold on. Grab some water real quick. Thinking the Dems are going to lose 2020 over immigration. Well, you know what? With the numbers the way they're showing, and it's only and the situation is only going to get worse. Now, unless it gets a lot better, and then like say the immigration crossings go way down, well, that's not good for the Democrats either. Why? Because then Trump's going to be able to claim credit for it, which he rightly will be able to do. He'll say, well, it was me threatening the Mexicans with those tariffs and them jumping on board and helping us. That's what brought down the immigration number. And he's going to be right. So, yeah, so the immigration issue, I mean, I think between the immigration issue, the economy, generally they're leftward leaning on a lot of social issues. They're looking for reparations. I'm on Black YouTube a lot. I'm a moderator for a couple of different Black YouTube sites. But I've written in there saying, hey, look, if you want President Trump to get reelected, just push the Democrats to make reparations a plank in the Democratic platform. I've written that on there saying that's how you guarantee Trump's going to win, because then you'll have people come out of the woodwork to vote, against the Democrat, saying, well, shit, because, reparations have always been a real dicey issue in the United States, and a lot of people aren't going to be a big fan of, a lot of people emigrated here. My family emigrated here, like in the 1900s, early 1900s, obviously, my family had nothing to do with, slavery or anything like that. So a lot of people are going to feel the same way. A lot of Hispanic immigrants whose family came here after the fact, or even lived here during the time that their families didn't own any slaves or anything. Mexico was against slavery. That's why Texas actually seceded from Mexico, because Mexico wouldn't let them own slaves. People don't really know that. They say, "Yay, Texas independence! Remember the Alamo." Well, what that really was about was Mexico said we don't allow slavery in our area, and Texas said, "Well, we want slaves," and so they revolted against Mexico. They really don't tell you the backstory on that too much. They kind of make it sound like, yay, this was really cool, yay, but it really wasn't. But anyway, so So I mean that's a real dicey issue, but yeah, I mean a lot of people aren't in favor of it. A lot of immigrants who've come here, in the last 150 years aren't going to be in favor of writing a check. A lot of people who had nothing to do with it aren't going to be in favor of writing a check, and even people whose family maybe dates back. I think Ben Affleck's family owned slaves. I think it showed up like that. I mean, we have something called no corruption of blood, meaning that you can't be held accountable for the sins of your father, and you definitely can't be held accountable for the sins of your father's father. So, in the idea that somebody has to write a check today for something that happened 150 years ago, that's going to be a tough sell to the American public, and a lot of people are going to be against it. Especially the numbers they're talking about. I mean, they're talking about some serious change. I mean, it's not talking about, 5,000 here, 20,000 here. No, no. They're talking like a lot of freaking money, like trillions of dollars. Yeah, it's a lot. And so that's going to add up fast, and people aren't going to be jumping up and down about it. Just my opinion. You got Buttigieg saying that the only way we can win in 2020 is to go further left because he's planning that we're just going to have a base election. Well, the Democrats tried a base election. It was called 2016. They figured they'll play the identity politics card. Clinton came out and said, people have just, half the people who support Trump are deplorables. And so they played the identity politics game, and it didn't work. It didn't work out so well. They ran up some big numbers in New York, New Jersey, California, Oregon, Washington, but we have the Electoral College. So yeah, they ran up the vote. She won the popular vote. Yay, whippy! Hey, great. But they lost in the states that mattered, and they lost in Michigan, Wisconsin, lost in Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania. You can't win an election like that. Karen, we already aren't too much. My ancestors are from Ireland and were discriminated against. Oh. Oh, Ireland. Yeah, well, yeah, shit. I mean, the English that were living here at the time really hated the Irish back in Europe, and they hated the Irish when they came over here. Go home Irish, all that shit. Yeah, you know. So Jervis is like, sorry to hear that. Well, I think Karen's gotten over it. Jervis. Hey, Miss Jervis. But yeah, let's take a look, see what the next story we got to cover here. Let's see what else we have going on in the news today. Let's see. Let me just jump over here real quick. Boom. Boom. Let's see. Oh, here we go. This will. Oh, let's cover a story from last night because I went on this rant about the British last night. So this one just came up. All right, let's take a look here. New dossier deepens Trump's suspicions about America's top ally. Let's take a look. Okay. Now there are two British-produced anti-Trump dossiers. No shit. Wow, this just came out from Rowan Scarborough. She's been covering this issue really good on the whole Trump-Russia collusion story. This just came out. When did it come out? This must have just came out like minutes ago. All right, so this is Tuesday, July 9th, just minutes ago. Breaking news. Now there are two British-produced anti-Trump dossiers that are deepening the president's suspicions about the U.S.-UK special relationship. Quote-unquote, special relationship. Yeah, real special. Yeah, they spy on us. Yeah, great, because the CIA can't do it, so they farm it out to the British, and we say, yeah, we'll do it. Idiots. First came Christopher Steele, a former British spy who maintains close contact with his country's secret intelligence service. In 2016, from his London offices, Mr. Steele churned out 17 allegation-filled memos at the request of his Democratic Party handlers. A second dossier, written by London's top man in Washington, Kim Darroch, appeared this week in the Daily Mail. Like the Steele papers, the Darroch dossier has been written in segments and is filled with anti-Trump vitriol. Even before the extraordinary disclosures, President Trump was deeply suspicious of the British government's role in investigating him and his allies about Russian interference in the 2016 election. Sourced by shadowy Kremlin figures, the Steele dossier told a tale of deep and widespread conspiracy between Trump and the Kremlin. The document, coming as it did from someone connected to British intelligence, gained wide acceptance inside the Obama administration's Justice Department. Mr. Steele and his Moscow sources made a dozen major allegations against Mr. Trump. All were proved untrue. With Special Counsel Robert Mueller's March report on Russian election. Here we go. Mr. Steele shared his gossip with MI6 headquarters, raising questions about whether London's top spies believe his criminal charges against Mr. Trump and whether they spread the material among the UK cabinet. Now comes British dossier number 2. Mr. Darroch's 2 years of secret cables went straight to the Foreign Office, where they were likely distributed to the seats of power, including number 10 Downing Street, where the Prime Minister sits. To what degrees they poisoned Mr. Trump's connections to Prime Minister Theresa May's government may be told one day. Yeah, not today. Like the publication of the Steele dossier in January 2017 by BuzzFeed, the debut of the Darroch dossier had immediate impact. Mr. Trump went on Twitter to declare that he was no longer dealing with Mr. Darroch. The White House promptly disinvited him from an elegant CEO-filled Treasury Department dinner Monday night for the visiting Emir of Qatar, who, by the way, just bought 5 Boeing, I think, 777s or 757s. Yeah, those dinners actually work out pretty good. Yeah, well, see, Qatar's got some issues because they kind of got one foot in with the Iranians and one foot in with us. And the president, and then of course the Qatar's got problems with, because of that, they have problems with the Saudis and Bahrain and Oman. So he's trying to get that smoothed over. So he invites them over, wines and dines them, talks to them, and of course Trump can talk to anybody. And he's got Jared Kushner there, and Kushner knows all these people from the Middle East. Again, here's this Orthodox Jew talking to all these Sunni and Shiite, well, primarily Sunni Muslims. And, who just probably, hate Israel, but yet he's got them all talking with Israel and working together on a lot of different things. So anyway, so they're all over there, goofing off with each other, and then he goes, yeah, I'm going to buy 5 planes from Boeing, 5 big ones. These are, 777s, I think. They're expensive. But anyway, just a little tangent there. As a, let's see. As a backdrop, Trump associates and the president have another suspicion about America's top ally. Aha! The plot thickens. George Papadopoulos, as a Trump volunteer in London, encountered at least 2 FBI spies, Professor Stefan Halper and a supposed associate, as he worked in 2016 to try to set up a Trump-Kremlin meeting. He suspects other informants were dispatched to make contact with him, and he believes the British spy service helped. Remember, Stefan Halper, again, what my opinion is of all this, was that this whole investigation was really just a front. Remember now, this is counterintel. When you think you know what they were trying to do, you still missed it. It's like, okay, we're trying to do this. And then they have this cover story. Well, no, we were trying to do this, which is bad, right? We're investigating the president, and we're trying to, do a coup to get him out of there. Okay, that sounds really nasty. But what was the real purpose? In my opinion, the real purpose was to use the investigation as a cover to provide real-time intel to the Clinton campaign. And why do I say this? Why? Because look at the screen. See the name up there, Professor Stefan Halper. Okay, he's been tied with the intelligence community since the 70s. Old-time, big, fat dude, intelligence guy. Now, to those of us who supported Ronald Reagan and actually got to vote for him, this may not be very nice news to hear. Stefan Halper, what he did, and this became called DebateGate. It came out in 1983. Okay? During the 1980 election, it was a real tight race. But the Carter people I saw some internal polling numbers showing Reagan had a chance to win the election. Remember, Carter was playing the stay in the White House strategy because of the Iran hostage crisis. And would not agree to debate Ronald Reagan. And Reagan was coming from behind, so Reagan, of course, wanted a debate. He wanted, get out there on stage with the president. When Carter saw the internal poll numbers, he finally agreed to a single debate, one debate. It was held 6 or 7 days before the actual election voting day. So it was going to be an important debate. This was it. I mean, if you screwed up on the debate, you didn't have a lot of chance to recover from it in just 6-7 days. And if you did really great, you got to ride that momentum right into, the November election date. So anyway, now Stefan Halper, close ties to U.S. intelligence, the CIA hated Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter fired like 3,000 agents. Because remember, this is 76 when he came in. He came in 77. This is right after the whole CIA, Laos, Vietnam, MK Ultra, all that weird shit the CIA was doing. That was right there. That was the Buy committee hearings, Birch Buy, bringing out all the evils the CIA had done. So Carter gets in there. He's an outsider. He fires a whole bunch of agents. So these people, the deep state, if you will, wanted Carter gone. Just like they didn't want Trump elected. Well, in this case, they wanted President Carter gone. So Stefan Halper, who had ties to the Reagan campaign, what did he do? He stole Jimmy Carter's debate preparation materials. So that means Reagan, now I'm not saying Reagan knew they were stolen, but his campaign people knew they were stolen, and they're the ones who briefed Reagan, and Reagan was a very much on-script kind of guy. So anyway, if you remember that debate, and I did watch it, and maybe some of you are old enough to have watched it too, Reagan had an answer for everything Carter said. Reagan cleaned Carter's clock. And Reagan was not a genius by any stretch of the imagination. He was an actor, but he could read from a script. And if you remember correctly, if you watch the debate, you're not allowed to bring any notes with you onto the debate stage. They give you a pen and you have a notepad sitting up there. You can take notes. Carter was the first one to speak. Give a little intro, right? As soon as Reagan hit that debate stage and he hit that podium, he started writing furiously because they gave him a bunch of shit to memorize. And he's an actor; he's like memorizing lines, and he was writing furiously. I mean, it was almost embarrassing because he was up there just writing. He wasn't listening to the damn thing Carter had to say. But he knew everything Carter was going to say, and he had an answer for all of it. The famous, "There you go again, Jimmy," talking about Social Security. And he cleaned Carter's clock that debate. And man, if there was one thing you can point to as to why Reagan won that election, you can point to the debate performance. Carter walked out of there kind of all disheveled. He didn't know what the hell hit him. It was like he's like, God damn, did Reagan have all my materials? Well, it turns out Reagan did. So anyway, Stefan Halper, involved in that in 1980 with his CIA friends, deep state people. Well, he's also involved in this mess here. So why bring in Stefan Halper? Well, again, in my opinion, this whole thing, what we think is horrible, this whole like coup thing, bullshit, that was the insurance policy. That's only if their efforts to give real-time intel on the Trump campaign failed. And how did they get the real-time intel? One, they were doing, even before they got the FISA court warrants, they were doing something called FISA 702s, where they could actually spy on people, especially overseas, listen out on phone calls, emails, everything else. And then, of course, get the hook with Carter Page. And once you get the hook with Carter Page, you're allowed to go 4 levels, 5 levels out. We don't know how many levels out. You end up touching into the campaign headquarter people. Carter Page talks to 20 people. They talk to 20 people, 20, 20, 20. Eventually, you get to campaign headquarters. You get to Kellyanne Conway. You get to Manafort. You get to Lewandowski. You get to Trump himself. The campaign shooting information back and forth from the headquarters in Manhattan out to the campaign field, campaign trail, rather. And, you're talking emails, debate preparation materials, all of that. And then who was the liaison in the White House? Okay. Now, Obama's a smart guy. He wouldn't make somebody he liked actually the liaison between the White House and Department of Justice and the FBI, CIA. So he appointed an idiot, Joe Biden. Joe Biden now he's collecting, getting all this information. So what's he going to do with it? Well, he has to give it to somebody in the Clinton campaign. Well, it has to be somebody you trust, somebody you know who's not going to dime you out. Somebody, in other words, someone really sleazy. Well, who's working the Clinton campaign? Who's running it? Who's in charge? Who's up at the top? John Podesta. Remember, he was the one who came out that night and under the glass ceiling. So, and Podesta and Biden go way back, long time. So all the information is coming up, going across from Biden over to Podesta with the blessings of President Obama. And then, of course, Podesta is probably asking for information. It's going both ways. Biden sends a request down below. Information comes back up. He passes it over to Mr. Podesta. Now, remember now, Carter was also a script kind of guy. Carter would stay on script. So when Halper stole the debate materials for Carter to give to Reagan, they knew what Carter was going to say. Now, if you remember, Hillary Clinton looked really frustrated during her debates with Donald Trump. Well, here's the deal with Donald Trump. They probably had a script for Donald Trump for each of the debates he did with Clinton. I guarantee it. But Donald Trump's one of those guys you can't tell him what to do or say. So they said, okay, here's what you need to say, here's what you need not to say, and you need to do like this and say that. So, and Clinton had his script. But again, Trump's the kind of guy who doesn't stay on script. I guarantee you it wasn't on script when he said to Hillary, she goes, well, I'm glad, you're not in a position of power. And he goes, yeah, because if I was, you'd be in jail. Well, I guarantee that wasn't part of the script. Okay, so she was really frustrated because she had his script. She had everything he was supposed to say that his staff told him to say. But Trump is smarter than everybody in the room. Doesn't listen to everybody. Takes his own counsel, his own advice. And so she was frustrated because she was like, "Well, wait a second. He's not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say this." And Trump just, fuck you. I'm going to say what I want to say. Thank God, Trump is the way he is. Otherwise, she had his entire script, and she would have run the tables on him for those debates, and he very well could have been President Clinton. Effie loves America. Hey, Effie loves America. How you doing? Let's see. I want rubber if they're going to give them out. Karen, that's a good one. But I say, yeah, I'll take it. I'll take the money. But yeah. So, and in my opinion, that's what I think would happen. So let's go. Let's continue on with this. Let me grab another cigarette. All right. Let's see. So anyway, George Papadopoulos, as a Trump volunteer in London, encountered at least two FBI spies, Professor Stefan Halper and his supposed associates, I'm out looking babe, as he worked in 2016 to try to set up a Trump-Kremlin meeting. That's what Papadopoulos was trying to do. He's trying to get a meeting with Trump in the Kremlin to show Trump's foreign policy experience. Papadopoulos suspects other informants were dispatched to make contact with him, and he believes the British spy service helped. Well, yeah, they're in London. Of course, they would have to get permission from these guys. Hey, look, we're going to do some operation in your country. I mean, that's just common courtesy, and of course, they're all in on it. The U.S.-UK scandal that is going to hit the headlines this week is about the MI6 in coordination with the CIA running Stefan Halper at me in London. Papadopoulos tweeted after the Derek story broke. That'd be interesting. Maybe Papadopoulos is right. So basically, Papadopoulos says the following in a tweet. The U.S.-UK scandal that is going to hit the headlines this week is about the MI6 in coordination with the CIA running Stefan Halper at me in London. Mr. Trump believes Mrs. May knows something about it. I may very well talk to her about that, Trump told reporters in May before leaving on a state visit to Britain. There are rumors that the CIA or FBI were involved with the UK having to do with the Russian hoax, and I very well may talk to her about that. There are connections. Mr. Halper, a consultant in Washington and professor at Cambridge University, is a business partner of Richard Dearlove, a former director of MI6. Mr. Steele, in a London court where he is being sued for defamation, filed a declaration saying he shared dossier material with the intelligence service, with MI6. Mr. Derrick, in his series of secret cables, attacked virtually all aspects of Mr. Trump's rule, including scandals, Russia, trade, and Iran. The ambassador described America's commander-in-chief as inept, insecure, and incompetent. Yeah, we like the lowest unemployment in 50 years. We like peace breaking out around the world. We like more Americans working today than ever before. We like high growth, twice the growth of the British economy, by the way. A bunch of losers. And he went on to say the Trump White House is uniquely dysfunctional. Yeah, it's dysfunctional as all the great numbers we have, and you guys suck. Okay. And again, wait till this no-deal Brexit thing goes through, and you're over here begging for a trade deal with the United States. Trump ought to say, you know what, give up a whole bunch of shit, give up all your intelligence guys who were part of this mess, and maybe we'll talk trade. Otherwise, go fuck yourselves. Because where are they going to run to? Where? The Chinese? They don't have that kind of muscle. They can't deal with the Chinese directly. Screw them. Are you kidding? The only people who have the muscle to deal with the Chinese directly and on a winning footing is the United States of America. So they can't deal with the EU. They're breaking away from them. We tell them to go fuck themselves. The Chinese will clean their clock on any kind of trade deal. If you don't believe me, ask the Canadians on that one. Then who's left? Nobody. So they're screwed. Anyway. So either they give up all their intelligence officials that were part of this whole fucking mess, or we tell them to fucking starve, which they will be doing sometime soon. The ambassador also repeats a Democratic Party talking point that Mr. Trump is somehow indebted to Moscow. Yeah, what a bunch of bull. He knows better. The Mueller Report told of no Trump working relationship with the Kremlin over the years. Exactly. Democrats, principally President Obama's intelligence chiefs, have accused Mr. Trump of being an agent of Russia without offering any goddamn proof. Mr. Derrick wrote of a possible Russian Trump conspiracy. The worst cannot be ruled out. Idiot. Bullshit. He knows he was lying. Mr. Trump tweeted Tuesday, the wacky ambassador of the UK foisted upon the United States is not someone we are thrilled with, a very stupid guy. Yep, exactly. Some of Mr. Trump's former campaign aides see a pattern of poisonous British behavior toward an American president. Yeah, fuck them. Again, when they break away from this is October 31st, this is going to be so freaking funny. They're going to do this no-deal Brexit. They're going to have any deal in place, and they're going to come crying, begging for a trade deal with the United States, and we're going to tell them to go fuck themselves unless they give up all these intelligence officials, and they give us all the dirt on everything. Period. Let's see. We're citizens, not subjects. Loser. Yeah. There you go. Thank you, Effie. Let's see. Right, exactly. The Americans don't rule. Thank you. Right, exactly. Some of Mr. Trump's former campaign aides see a pattern of poisonous British behavior toward an American president. Ironically, Trump and dozens of his associates, like me, this is let's see who's talking, J.D. Gordon. Ironically, Trump and dozens of his associates, like me, suffered through years of a media firestorm, thanks in part to British intelligence figures like Christopher Steele and his colleagues. J.D. Gordon, a former Pentagon spokesman and campaign national security advisor, told the Washington Times. Yet, if the cables and subsequent leaks were intentional, yes, they were, perhaps it's not so ironic after all. Regardless, he should be recalled by London immediately. At one point last year, Trump planned. This part's important. At one point last year, Mr. Trump planned to declassify documents pertaining to the FBI's Trump-Russian investigation. He backed off partly because he said key allies protested. Yeah, the British. More recently, he empowered and the British and the Australians. More recently, he empowered Attorney General William Barr to release material from the investigation as he sees fit. Well, the British just fucked this one up by bashing on Trump because now he's going to release it all. Mr. Barr appointed the U.S. Attorney for Connecticut, a real dick who I like a lot, John Durham, to investigate how the FBI went after Trump aides. After months of allegations from Mr. Steele, former Obama aides, and Democrats, no Trump ally was charged with conspiring with Russia's election meddling. The UK knows that the President and Congress read and know about the UK's interference in the 2016 election and are now trying to get ahead of the declassified info that's going to hit the headlines, Papadopoulos said. The UK is nothing more than a hindrance to U.S. interests in this new era. Yeah, so basically they're coming out saying Trump's an idiot because they know when this shit gets declassified, they're going to look like a bunch of criminals. And I like what Papadopoulos says about Britain. This is a great line. The UK is nothing more than a hindrance to U.S. interests in this new era. Namely, the British Empire is gone. It's been gone for a long time. They suck. They're nobodies. And you know what? They're trying to pretend like they're still important. And they're not. And it's still important. There you go. All right. Doop. Anyway, live call-in show, phone number 775-273-8970, or email me, put in there and say, hey, I emailed you, and I want to appear by vMix video phone call, do a side-by-side, or two people call in on video call, or somebody's on a video call and somebody's on a phone call. We can do all that. We're all high-tech here at Carl's Opinions YouTube channel. Totally high-tech. You know it. That's us. High-tech. Got a nice mixer board over here. Oh, yeah, I'll point. Got a nice mixer board over here. Got a nice audio interface over here. Got two desktop computers over here. And a laptop right down here. All in an effort to produce an excellent show for Carl's YouTube's Opinion YouTube channel audience and viewing public. There you go. Yeah, that's me. I like to goof off once in a while. But anyway. Oh, and a phone tied into said audio interface and mixer board, as we were discussing, with the mix minus operation so that the caller does not get an echo in their ear. And yes, Effie screwed up the whole YouTube thing last time by not muting her phone, but don't worry, we fixed that problem. That shouldn't be an issue anymore. I'm only kidding, Effie. Actually, Effie, all I need to do, because I almost screwed up tonight. I was playing a YouTube video, and I hit the mix button, the main mix button, and it was playing through at the same time, and then I heard it, thank God, and I'm like, oh, shit. So I quick pushed the mix button off and replayed it. It came out good. Hey, American Shield, how you doing, man? Good seeing you. American Shield. American Shield. American Shield, do you have a channel? Do you have a YouTube channel? Yeah, so you got like a 20-second delay before he hears it. So we'll see. Yeah, it is. How much money is all that? Oh, I can't disclose that. Let's see. Good seeing. But no, I'm just kidding. No. It's what you do is you don't buy it all at once. That's what you do, Karen. You just like when I started, I had like a little this. Nah, I'm just kidding. Oh, okay. Hold on. All right. Hey, American. I just made you a moderator, so put a link to your channel in the chat room. So you can do that. You're a moderator, so you can do the link thing, bobber, whatever. So anyway, yeah, so go ahead and do that, American Shield. So anyway, American Shield's going to put a link to his YouTube channel in the chat room. So I read a lot of his comments. He seems like he's got the right mindset. So there you go. Oh, look at that. Effie already did it for you. Look at that. But yeah, what you do, Karen, is you don't buy it all at once. Like when I first started, I had a laptop and a webcam and a USB port microphone. So I didn't have the mixer board or anything. And I didn't do call-in shows. Then you keep reading, learning stuff. You know, I'm not an IT guy, I'm not a computer guy, I'm not a music guy, I'm not a mixer board guy, I'm not any guy. But you just keep reading stuff over and over again. Then eventually I got the software on a free 60-day, 60-day free trial for live streaming software. So then I started learning and reading, watching the tutorials, a lot of YouTube tutorials from the vMix software I have. And you go to the chat rooms, you know, when you have a problem and you read stuff back and forth. I got to actually meet the guys who actually own. Oh yeah, you're welcome, American Shield. I actually got to meet the guys at the National Association of Broadcasters convention down in Las Vegas. That was a lot of fun. Had a really good time down there, and I got to actually meet the guys who do the software. So I had like 14 questions because their technical support is really good, but it's like an email. You send them an email, they email you back. But anyway, I had like 14 questions that I had written down, and actually met one of the guys who does the tutorials, and of course he knows a lot. And there's another guy there who does audio, so I sat there and just asked him. You know, you can go meet them. You know, it's the National Association of Broadcasters, NAB, and the whole point is for them to interact with people. So I just sat there and I just asked all my 14 questions, and it was great. Got to learn a lot, and then you just start buying stuff little piecemeal. There was like I don't have any credit cards. You know, there was I don't have the money. I don't buy it. That's how I am. So I don't have any credit cards. I just whatever I can afford to buy. And there's some things you can buy like on Amazon. You can buy on time payments, no interest. You know, you don't want to get stuck with interest. You know, so you can buy like no interest payments and stuff like that. You just little. You know, you gotta crawl before you can walk and walk before you can run, and you just slowly start doing stuff. And then you learn stuff about sound and how to bring sound in. So, like you bring sound in from a computer into a mixer board into your production. You know, you need like a transformer to transform the sound quality to bring it. You know, so it's good sound quality. Same thing like with the phone line coming off a phone onto through an interface device. You got to bring another transformer into that. You know, internet stuff, all that shit. So you got to you just take your time. It's not a rush. It's not a race. Shit. I mean, you got to start somewhere. But yeah, just start small and just work your way up. It's a fun, frustrating at times process. Effie will tell you that. I was on the phone with her a lot. Say, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. What this shit. But yeah, it's cool. Thank you. I'll be here all week. Good one. I like that. But let's see. But yeah, so you just start you start slowly and then you just work your way up. And it's like I said, it's don't have a lot of expectations for yourself. Just keep building slowly and surely. You'll get there. It's fun, but it's frustrating sometimes, but it's fun. But I think I'm too old for that. Oh no, I'm old. I'm 104. Yeah, no, I'm only kidding. I'm 53. 53 years old. But let's see, what's the next story I wanted to cover? Let's see, there were some new breaking news stories that were coming out. See, usually when I go on late, I get all the breaking news has already been broke. So, but let's take a look here. So, so I'm not used to like, wow, there's breaking news while I'm actually on live. That's kind of cool. It's like, wow, this just went down. It's like shit. Okay, let's take a look here. Oh, here's a stupid one. Okay. Huh. All right. California Governor Gavin Newsom signs illegal immigrant health care bill into law. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's do that. We are the same age. Okay, that's cool. But let's see here. All right, let's take a look. Bump, bump. Nope. There we go. California Governor Gavin Newsom signs illegal immigrant health care bill into law, obviously from today, and Washington Times reprinting an Associated Press story. California has become the first state to offer taxpayer-funded health benefits to adults living in the country illegally. Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill into law on Tuesday that makes low-income adults aged 25 and younger eligible for the state's Medicaid program regardless of their immigration status. State officials expect the plan to cover about 90,000 people. Yeah, right. Trust me, that 90,000 people number, that's going to go way up. 90,000 people and cost taxpayers $98 million. California already covers children ages 18 and younger regardless of immigration status. The law will not give health insurance benefits to everyone 25 and younger, but only those whose income is low enough to qualify. These people work under the table, most of them. They don't get a paycheck. Hey, how are they not going to qualify? They can walk in, do you have a paycheck? No. And they can really say that. They have fake Social Security numbers, phony IDs. How are they going to figure out who's making enough money to not to qualify? I mean, that is like the most stupidest, dumbest thing I've ever heard. Newsom and that 90,000 number, 90,000 people, that's bullshit, and they know it. That number is going to go way up. 27% of the people who live in California right now were born in a foreign country. Okay, think about that. Newsom and Democratic legislative leaders say they plan to further expand coverage to more adults in the years to come. Yeah, no shit. Republican President Donald Trump has called the move crazy. Yes, it is. Unbelievable. That's insane. That is totally insane. Oh well. And there you go. Oh my God. All right. Yay. All right. Well, yeah, I'm not, like I said, I'm usually on late, so by the time I come on, all these stories already been are in there. So I already have them in the queue. But yeah, I'm not used to wow, breaking news. So check it out. All right. So let's take a look. Let's see if we can find some more breaking news. I'm sure we can. Washington Examiner. I'm sure they got. Let's see. Huh. Huh. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Now let's cover this one. We'll go back to the Christopher Steele Inspector General. This is 7 minutes ago. Now, if that's not breaking news, I don't know what is. Washington Examiner, 7 minutes ago. Wow. Devin Nunes, DOJ Inspector General, may know the truth about when Christopher Steele first briefed the FBI on the dossier. Huh. Yeah, see, I'm thinking it was back, I want to say sometime around March of 2016. That's my guess. Well, actually, maybe even February, because he was admonished by the FBI one day after the Iowa caucus. I think he was admonished on February 3rd, I want to say. Whatever it was one day after the Iowa caucus with President Trump, now President Trump, then candidate Trump came in second. And he wasn't supposed to do shit, remember? But anyway, there we go. This is from Daniel Chayden of, again, the Washington Examiner. Representative Devin Nunes said the Justice Department Inspector General may now be able to find out when British ex-spy Christopher Steele first briefed the FBI about his anti-Trump research as part of an investigation into alleged abuse of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. The California Republican reacted to news Tuesday that DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz's team conducted a 2-day interview with Steele, the author of the unsubstantiated and salacious dossier attacking President Trump that was used by the FBI to obtain FISA warrants to surveil one-time Trump campaign aide Carter Page. Although Nunes called this a good development, he also said there is one significant caveat that stands in the way of a potential breakthrough. Horowitz is looking at the origins of the investigation, but at least by talking to Christopher Steele, if Steele is being honest, which is a big if, he may know when it was that Steele first began briefing FBI agents, Nunes said on Fox News at night. It's Shannon Breen's show, I guess. 4 FISA warrant applications and renewals were filed from October 2016 through June 2017 against Page. Again, through June of 2017. Think about it. Trump was inaugurated January 20th of 2017. And, all this shit was going on. The application relied heavily on the unverified dossier compiled by Steele, which was hired by Fusion GPS. The opposition research firm was hired by Mark Elias of the Perkins Coie law firm at the behest of the Clinton presidential campaign. See how they do it? You got Clinton, then she goes to this law firm. The law firm goes to Fusion. Fusion goes to Steele. So it's like 4 steps removed away from Clinton. It's also how they try to get around campaign finance law violations. Excuse me. Steele and Fusion GPS. Let's see. Let's see. Where are we? 4 Pfizer. Blah 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 blah. Let's see. The opposition. Okay. Steele and Fusion GPS shopped the research around to various government figures, including one skeptical State Department official, as well as the media in the run-up to the 2016 election. Nunes, the top Republican on the House Intel Committee, has long been skeptical of the FBI's assertion that its counterintelligence investigation called Crossfire Hurricane began in July 2016 following a tip from Australian diplomat Alexander Downer that he heard from Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos that the Russians had damaging info about Hillary Clinton. He singled out Downer and Joseph Misford, a mysterious Maltese academic who first told Papadopoulos that the Russians had dirt on Clinton and who Nunes suspects is a Western intelligence plant. Yeah, he works for the Italians. It already came out. Played in the series of events that effectively set in motion what would become the Russia investigation. Hold on. It's just highly improbable they didn't have pieces of Steele's phony work before that, Nunes told host Shannon Bream, noting that the FBI claims they did not have Steele's research until the fall of 2016. Until the fall of 2016. Yeah, I don't buy that either. He pointed out that the dossier is actually a series of installments that could have been shared piecemeal. Nunes said in an interview late last month that he wants to ask Robert Mueller how far the counterintelligence investigation into Trump's campaign goes when the former special counsel of the Russian investigation testifies on July 17th. Democrats have dismissed the GOP's excitement about Horowitz's inquiry and Steele's role in it as a whataboutism run amok. No. Yeah. A second development related to Horowitz's inquiry on Tuesday was the revelation of a letter the watchdog sent to Congress last month that said his team has received and reviewed over 1 million records and has conducted over 100 interviews, including with current and former DOJ and FBI personnel, during its inquiry. Horowitz also said his team has made substantial progress towards completing the review and that he would provide another update about the timeline for the release of the final report in the coming weeks. Last week, House Judiciary Committee member John Ratcliffe of Texas said that he had met with Horowitz in late June, and the Inspector General said his investigation had concluded. This was followed by a Fox News report that said at least one key witness who is not part of the DOJ or the FBI came forward only after Attorney General William Barr tasked U.S. Attorney John Durham of Connecticut to lead a review of the origins of the Russia investigation. It now appears Steele was the subject of this breakthrough. The DOJ's review of the early stages of the Russia investigation is not a criminal inquiry, but should Durham find criminal activity, he can take prosecutorial action. Well, yeah, they're not. What's that saying? In law, we always say, well, they say it everywhere, but we always say when we go to court, well, we didn't get all dressed up for nothing. If you find some criminal shit, yeah, damn right. Let's see if we can find some more breaking news. That was 7 minutes ago. Let's see, we got anything else breaking? We'll find out. Let's see, what's this? Cube Zoom. What's this? Well, that's pretty cool. There you go. Ta-da! Are both doing a silent invasion. That's a fact. All right, let's see if I can find something else here. Let's see. Mm-hmm. All right, let's cover this story here. Boom, 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 boom. All right, the other border crisis, exhausted agents hanging on by a thread. This was filed just 1 hour ago. Looks like midnight, East Coast time. All right, let's take a look at this. Okay, beyond the humanitarian and security catastrophe unfolding at the southern border, there is another crisis few know about. Migrants have been the focus of the border crisis for months, and with good reasons. More than 700,000 people have been taken into custody by Customs and Border Protection. Personnel at and between ports of entry in the first 9 months of fiscal 2019, more than the previous 12 months. But less visible are the 14,750 rank-and-file U.S. Border Patrol agents who are forbidden from speaking with the media. They make up around 75% of the 19,500 agents on payroll as of late June, according to the agency's union. The National Border Patrol Council, several agents, all union representatives themselves, said their fellow agents may not be making a scene, but many are not okay. If there's going to be a front page headline about what's happening on the border as it pertains to Border Patrol agents, it should be exhausted, in quotes, said Wesley Farrar, second vice president for the El Paso chapter. That's what we are, exhausted in every avenue. Exhausted mentally, exhausted physically, Farrar said. Some of the things that they have, some of the things that they have to see and deal with are horrible, said the union's Yuma chapter president Mario Campos. Agents find people that are deceased in way greater rates than normal. Normally we get things that are significant events like that happen throughout the year, but because of the huge influx, it happens more often. Two union reps said agents are drinking more. Well, that's not good. Other agents who are former military are having new issues with PTSD as a result of seeing thousands of children who have come through without parents suffer emotionally. There's always going to be those who are affected more deeply with it, just dealing with the constant flow of kids, says John Afsenson, a union VP, who represents approximately 1,000 agents based out of Del Rio, Texas. I haven't seen any increase in alcoholism, but then again, I probably would never know that anyway. If someone was drinking, they're probably going to keep it to themselves, but I don't doubt it's happening. Anfinson said agents are constantly pressed to bring more people in from the field quickly, process, hold, then release those people in order to make room for more. Agents are upset, and I would say a big part of it is because of the groups we know are getting away. Those are people that we would normally be pursuing and arresting, but we're just not out there. A lot of them are also upset about the fact that we are just sort of one length in the conveyor belt toward releasing people into the country. We have no metric for measuring it, but me being a representative of the agents, depression is going up. PTSD that agents already had from their service in the military is now being re-triggered all over again. The El Paso Union chapter recently invited the National Institute for Occupational Safety Health Hazard Evaluation to evaluate occupational health issues. However, senior board officials in the region forbid agents and supervisors from speaking with the health officials about their experiences. We're handling it, possibly to our detriment, if it was a disaster where our building was on fire and people were running and it was just an unmitigated disaster, then people might pay attention. But because we're getting things done relatively in a timely fashion, it looks like we can handle it. Farrar said agents are just the pawns in a political game that does not appear to be getting solved anytime soon. Nobody in the Border Patrol agent's mind, nobody is going to step up and fix this. Everybody keeps telling us that it's Congress, he said. The average Border Patrol agent doesn't care. We're doing our part. Now we need the rest of the government to do their part. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Nobody talks about those guys. Smokes may be bad, but they make us. Smokes may be bad, but they make you look like a badass. Yep, I agree. Let's see. I appreciate the wrench curl thing. Let's see. How many cigarettes do you smoke a day? Let's see. I'm guessing at least 11, 4, 80 a day until he had a heart attack at 55. Oh, thanks, Karen. Thanks for the good news. I'm going to be 54 in a month. What are you trying to say? But anyway. Okay, let's take a look here. Let's see. Actually, I've been smoking the same cigarette through this entire show. It just looks like I've been relighting it because I don't smoke it, so it keeps going out. So it's actually been the same cigarette the entire show. I can show you. It's right here in the ashtray. Oh, the camera won't reach there. You can't see it, but nonetheless, there it is. But yeah, I agree with American Shield. They make you look like a badass. All the cool kids are doing it. That's what I always say. But let's see if I can find it. I think that was pretty much all the stories I had to cover tonight. Yeah, I don't think I really had anything else. Let me take a look real quick here. there was anything else I was going to cover. Let's take a look. Nope. That was pretty much about it. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I was going to cover. Oh, shit, I've been on for 2 hours. Anyway, I've been on for 2 hours. I didn't realize that. I kind of lose track of time a lot when I do these shows. So, but I've been on for 2 hours, and I want to thank everybody who's been in the chat room, everybody's been viewing us, and everybody who'll be viewing us later. So, thanks, everybody. And, yeah, a lot of stories on immigration. If you missed the beginning part of it, check the replay. I covered the Tom Steyer thing pretty good and talked about his connections with CCA and also some coal mines out there, and also what Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have to think about him joining the race as a billionaire. I also covered the immigration story and, of course, the British and the Mueller Report. A nice article I covered from Aaron Mate of The Nation, a left-leaning the left magazine, period. And he was saying pretty much how Mueller didn't have any of the proof to substantiate any of the allegations he made in his report regarding Russian interference. It's a very good story. Tucker Carlson interviewed him tonight. He was on Tucker's show. I went to a little more depth with his article because you can versus being on just for a few minutes on Tucker's show. But after I saw him on Tucker's show, I was like, hey, I want to pull up this guy's article, and I did. So that's on there. So if you get a chance, check the replay out. And other than that, guys, thanks again for watching Carl's Opinion. And for Carl's Opinion, this is Carl. Have a great night, everybody. Take care. We'll see you in the next live stream. Bye-bye.